Off the Cuff with Buti Manamela for 2021. My name is Florence Masebe, and I am with my co-host, Seema. Seema and I will be taking you through what we are talking about today, but our main anchor for this space is always the Deputy Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation, Buti Manamela. Please do tell your friends to join the space, and I am going to hand over to Deputy Minister to tell us what we are talking about today and what we'll be focusing on and how you can participate as we go along. DM?
Thank you very much, Florence, and a happy 2020 to all of you. Our first space for, a happy 2022.
Yes, I think I said 2021. I say it every day.
Yeah.
2022.
And also a welcome to all of you to our first Twitter space for 2022. And today we're talking about illegal, bogus, fly-by-night colleges. And before we talk about that, I want to take this opportunity to congratulate all of those who received their results and who did well, their matric results. Congratulations to all of you in whatever way in which you've passed. And those who will be joining our TVET colleges and also our universities and community colleges, we are saying to you, welcome aboard. And we hope that you will do as well as you did in your schooling days. But also those who are still awaiting their results, wish you all the best, and we hope that you do get your results as soon as possible. The National Student Financial Aid Scheme is hard at work, trying to ensure that we work with universities and with the students to ensure that those who qualify are granted funding at our institutions of higher learning. And I know that it's always a very tense period. I think, if you ask your brothers, sisters, friends, and those who've been to university, this is what, and to our TVET colleges, I understand that this is quite a tense period, but we're doing all that we can to ensure that each and every student who qualifies to go and study at our universities do get that opportunity to ensure that you all contribute ultimately into the success of our country, building a better, sustainable economy, contributing to its social, political, and any other form of stability. So all of you, welcome on board. In the week when we were building up to this space, I've received a lot of comments, people quite excited about this space, and I hope that we will be able to contribute meaningfully so that we are able to ultimately deal with the scourge of illegal colleges in our country. Some have said that, Twitter spaces are not the best place. I must assure you that this is not the only platform that we're using to deal with bogus colleges. I've personally been to some of the colleges in Gauteng, in KZN, in the Western Cape, all over the country, to help shut down, these colleges, working together with communities, because communities are the center of helping us, expose these colleges and also ensure that we shut them down. And a lot of work has been done working together with the prosecutions authority, working together with the police to make sure that we deal with, bogus or illegal colleges, because these colleges offer highly compromised qualifications, which are not recognized for employment purposes or for further studying. And, even though we're hard at work in eliminating these colleges, there are still many students who continue to register and unlawfully granted, these fake qualifications. And the number of colleges that are operating legally, of course, have decreased tremendously, I must say, because since 2011, we've been hard at work working together with SAPS and with the Department of Basic Education in cracking down on these bogus college operators. And we know that, they operate in the same manner as criminal syndicates. You close one here, another one open next door, and most of them tend to operate at the beginning of each academic year, and they prey on the vulnerabilities of young people and their families who are obviously desperate to ensure that they gain entry into an academic institutions. 40 of these operators, illegal operators, were arrested since 2011, and this includes some of the US-based operators. And we, as the department, have laid charges on some of them with the FBI, and these arrests, we believe, will result in collaboration between our law enforcement agencies and the various department. I must say, as we start, that we are now faced with an even bigger threat. The increasing embrace of online services by individuals, which increases the risk of unscrupulous private education providers preying on desperate young people and their families. So if you know of one, if you are in doubt whether an institution has been registered or not, or whether it has the requisite it has registered also each of the programs that they claim to be operating. We will be repeating this line throughout the show or throughout the space, 0800 872 222, 0800 872 222, for you to call us at the department just to check if the college that you want to register with has been registered. Or if you just happen to pass by, there are posters all over, which some of them, cannot be within reach, of the eyes of the department or the departmental officials. Please do help us by informing us if you believe that there is a college that is offering fake qualifications, or if you want to verify if the one that you want to register for is registered with our colleges. And there are certain basic things that we need to obviously be on the check. This includes the fact that some of these institutions use our department's logo, uses the South African Qualifications Authority logo, claim to have, registered with the department. I remember when I went to one of the colleges in downtown Joburg, they had the audacity to show me, a fake registration for one of their programs, even though the college in the overall was registered, but some of the programs that they were offering were actually not registered. So this is part of the many conversations and the many work that and a lot of work that we've been doing since 2011 as the department to ensure that we shut down illegal colleges. Yes, as I said, they operate like criminal syndicates. You close one here and another one opens. It's like that shebeen that's unlicensed, that police come and shut down on the one day. The following day, they use a different venue, or they open at different times. So these are the things that we need to take into consideration. And we are aware and are not naive of the fact that we will not be able to completely shut down and, to use a word, throttle the operations by illegal bogus colleges. And therefore, as part of this platform and many other platforms that we have, we are really appealing to you that those which are not within our radar, please help us so that we're able to report that. So today we've got a couple of guests. We've got people from the QTCO. We've got the people from the department who are responsible for the registration of private colleges. We've got one of our DDGs here who's also going to be talking to us about this. So it's quite an exciting panel of guests who are going to be engaging with us on this and to give us more information. And we're going to open up for you later on so that we can engage. If you have information, if you have questions, if you are in doubt about anything, do join us and request to speak and ask for questions. As usual, in our spaces, I'm with Florence and with Sima, and Sima will help us to introduce our first guest.
Thanks so much, Deputy Minister. Good afternoon, everybody. I think we cannot let this day pass without saying a massive congratulations to the class of 2021. You have been exceptional regardless of your results. You've gone through a pandemic, there's been unrest, there has been so much going on in the last year, yet you have emerged. Massive congratulations. So, everybody, as the Deputy Minister has said, today we are going to be discussing the matter of bogus colleges. And most importantly, how can you tell whether the college you are interested in, your child, your cousin, is going to a legitimate one or not. So on the platform today, we have Mr. Vijayan Naidu, who is the CEO of the Quality Council on Trades and Occupations. So I think the QCTO, Quality Council on Trades and Occupations, that's a tough one. It's a mouthful to say on a Friday afternoon, Mr. Naidu. Welcome to the platform, sir. Can you take us through firstly, what is the mandate of the QCTO? How does the QCTO basically help in us determining
greetings to the Deputy Minister, as well as to Mr. Zungu, the DDG, and all others on this platform. Thank you for this opportunity. It is really appreciated. So very broadly speaking, the QCTO's mandate is one of developing occupational qualifications, part qualifications, and more recently skills programs for offering by skills development providers. And so if I could just use this opportunity to indicate that there is a slight disjuncture in the education environment that we find ourselves in, that by virtue of legislation, there is a distinction between colleges and skills development providers. Nevertheless, the issues and the problems articulated by the Deputy Minister are equally applicable to these. In terms of ensuring the quality that learners would be receiving, the QCTO accredits skills development providers to offer particular qualifications that they would apply for, and which qualifications are obviously registered on the National Qualifications Framework. So at the moment, and maybe there will be an addition to what the Deputy Minister has said, that, in terms of colleges, there is a register which can be checked on the department website. But skills development providers, who largely fall within the QCTO space, are currently not required to be registered, but they are required to be accredited. So I think there's two port of calls to check on the status of these colleges. The one would be obviously the DHET website, which would give you a list of the accredited colleges. And the next stop would be the QCTO website, which will give you a list of the skills development providers that are accredited to offer these qualifications. And again, we do have on our website the list of qualifications. And if there is a college that is suspected of being a bogus institution, we have a hotline number as well as our um, internal contact numbers. We do also have a query and complaints form on our website, which are some of the mechanisms that we use to investigate any such providers. And as the Deputy Minister has indicated, this is a problem that is quite rife within the skills development sector. We have more than 4,000 skills development providers, some active, some inactive. So, again, that's our mandate to ensure that the qualifications are accredited by the QCTO, registered on the NQF, and then that the providers are accredited. And again, that will have to be by way of certificate. So any potential learner, if inquiring at a skills development provider, must ask for proof of a QCTO certificate of accreditation, and that certificate will indicate exactly the qualifications for which that particular skills development provider is accredited for, which is the second check. So, in a nutshell, I would say there are two issues that any potential learner needs to take care of. One is ensuring that the qualification is registered on the national framework, the NQF, and secondly, in the SDP space, that the provider is accredited by the QCTO. That will be my input for now, Seema, if that is fine.
Thanks, Mr. Naidu. I'm curious. You mentioned, certification is important. So if I go into an institution and I'm checking, I must ask to see the certificate. If it's QCTO stamped, then I'm good to go. But before that, if I'm doing my homework and I'm looking at certain providers, what is it that I need to look at? For example, if I was looking online, are there any tips that you could give me as a potential student before I make up my mind about which provider to go with?
Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, I would think that the first step, if you want to follow a qualification, is to check that it is on registered on the NQF. Why do I say that? All quality councils are required to upload these qualifications to the NQF, which is managed by SAQA. So anything not appearing on the NQF in terms of qualifications means that it is probably a qualification that has not been accredited, has not been approved, and that should start to raise the red flags. Secondly, if you then choose an institution where you would like to pursue that qualification, then, as I said, two ports of call. If it's a college, you would have to use the DHET website. And if it doesn't appear there, then it's most probably a skills development provider. And then you will have to look at the QCTO website to check if that provider is accredited. So for me, it's two processes, and I put the legitimacy of the qualification primary, and then looking at the
Mr. Zungu, can you take us through I think, firstly, greetings for 2022. Take us through, please. As a student, it's a bit of a minefield if I was going in. Firstly, what are the different types of services that we provide in terms of the registrations? I know we've got QCTO, then we look at private colleges, and then higher education institutions. How should I, as a potential student or as a parent, make the distinction between them?
Thank you, Sima, and compliments of the season to you as well. Let me first greet the Deputy Minister, as well as the host and the CEO of QCTO, Mr. Naidu, my former CEO. I've worked with him while I was at QCTO as well, and greet all the colleagues that are on the chat. Also congratulating the class of 2021. I think they've done very well under very, very extreme, difficult conditions. As our late former state president used to say, it always looks impossible until it's done. And I think they've done very well. Well, to go back to your question, Sim, I think there are different types of education and training institutions in South Africa. We have, firstly, the public higher education and training institutions. We also have the private providers of education and training. On the public institutions, those would include your public universities, universities of technology, the TVET colleges, as well as the community colleges. All of these are actually state-funded institutions, and they are established by the Department of Higher Education and Training by means of legislation. The public institutions are deemed to be registered because they are established by law and by the department. But all private providers of higher education and training in the country, they are then required to register with it according to the law. Well, unfortunately, as you say, let me talk about the TVET colleges. You've got about 50 TVET colleges with multi-campuses of close to about 270 now. I think the number will grow very soon because we are busy constructing new campuses as we speak. So that number is going to grow. But we have just over 300 other private colleges that are registered and accredited to deliver education and training qualifications. Now, sometimes it becomes difficult for general public to distinguish as to whether this is a college that is bogus or is properly registered. What needs to happen for any member of public is to check with the Department of Education and Training on our website to check if this particular institution or college is registered, but also check, as Vijay was saying, you must also check with the quality councils such as QCTO, but also go further to check with the other institutions or bodies that accredit certain qualifications, such as SETAs. So if the institution cannot confirm or produce its registration certificate that was issued by the department or the quality councils, it might be actually unregistered as a public or as an institution. So therefore, we then say stay away from that. But also, if you are not sure, I think in his opening remarks, the DM did give the number that the public can call to verify if indeed this institution is registered or not. But before you register, again, for any course, two things that you need to look at is the accreditation status. I think Vijay touched on that, of the college that offers the course that you are interested in. Secondly, the status of the study program or qualification that you want to enroll on. And I think for the public to be safe as well, there are things that you actually look at sometimes, as you spoke, the DM spoke about those that are on offering online programs now, sometimes they tend to promise a number of things, promising jobs after graduation, sometimes consultants and websites offering 2 degrees for the price of 1, as well as huge discounts. So those are some of the hints that you can actually take and see that there's something that is not right in this particular institution. I'll just pause there for now, Sima. Thank you.
Thanks so much, DDG. Just what you've said there is actually quite interesting, where if it feels wrong, if there are any alarm bells that are going on, don't pursue, rather check first. So aside from the mechanisms that you've mentioned to us, is the view then that we should rather wait, even if it is until the last moment, because there's always that concern and the stress about, I need to register, time is going, the deadline is looming. Are you saying then that it's rather better to completely check and wait before any money changes hands?
Of course, because what's the use of rushing and then you pay all these monies, and in most cases, you'll find that even those monies are borrowed somewhere by the district parents, and they try to assist their children, and then you throw your very, very last cent, and unfortunately, the law will take its course, but sometimes there are a lot of delays, because you'll find that the police will say, but nobody forced you to do this. You went there voluntarily and you pay this money, and it will take for ages. By that time, the other institutions where you would have been assisted, and then you find that there are no more spaces available. But again, as you know, our government, I think, has done very well in order to cater for the poorest of the poor through the support of NSFAS. And I think for those parents that maybe due to the lack of information, then they end up going to mashonisas, borrowing monies, and then they throw that very last cent, whilst we have NSFAS that is available and caters for the poorest of the poor. And I think maybe we really need to push and cascade that information as far as possible in any institutions, be it churches, everywhere, where we can, in the community gathering, share this information.
On that, DDG, because part of the things I've been hearing throughout the week has been that me and you are not doing enough to firstly shut down illegal colleges, and secondly that we're not doing enough to give potential students and parents information about available public institutions, but also legitimate, properly registered private institutions. So I think just to talk to us about what we've been doing, as the department in order to deal with this.
Yes, no, thanks, Siam, for raising that. I think maybe let me start with the cascading of information, and because NSFAS is also one of our entities, one of the milestones that I've achieved was to partner with the Department of Basic Education to start sharing this information at an early stage, before even our young people reach, matric, but they get exposure. I was privileged to, at some point, being involved on that campaign, working with NSFAS, visiting the deepest and rural areas, where we're able to meet with the grade 10s, the grade 11s, just to sensitize them about the, this issue of using public institutions as opposed to private institutions, as well as the availability of NSFAS support, considering the fact that they come from the poorest of the poor. So from the department side, through our media and communication, these messages has been flighted throughout the year, and I'm sure Sima will also attest to that. In every space where our deputy minister has been, one of the topics that he will be talking about is the issues of these bogus colleges, closing them down, but also physically going there, not just to talk about it, but also going there to say, let's check this college. Is it properly registered or not? If not, the steps then are taken to ensure that these institutions or illegal institutions or bogus institutions are closed down. But the message has been throughout our website, throughout our social media about the opportunities where our young people can then apply and also make use of the support, financial aid support that is offered by NSFAS. We have had other campaigns at DM through our programs such as the TVET month, where we allow young people to come to our institutions or TVET colleges, and every one of those sessions we would have a representative from NSFAS, but also from the TVET colleges, giving them pamphlets and information about the different courses or offerings that are available in the TVET space, but also in the other institutions within the PSET system. Thank you, dear.
I think that's quite helpful. Now, the other question, DDG, is that and I hear the point you're making, which is a very important point, that if you go and report this to the police, they'll say you're not coerced and all of that. And I suppose that would similarly be, our attitude, because the question that's frequently asked is, so if I've been duped into registering with a private college, is there any assistance that the department could give me in order for me to recoup my money? Of course, the time can't be regained, that's been lost, and we can't legitimize, a qualification. But is there anything that the department does to help parents and students post facto? Because our emphasis has obviously been on the pre-registration. Like, don't register with them. Find out, call us, go into our website, check if this is a legitimate college. But people have already been duped into registering in these colleges. Do we have a commitment to assist legally, or what's the story?
Yeah, I so wish DM because once it becomes a legal matter, and then it becomes difficult because you'll now be interfering with the law. Hence, we encourage people that they mustn't even go there. I think the only help that we could provide is to say, now that you've realized that you went to this bogus institution, this is what we as the department, we can be able to offer you at a much less cost than what you probably would have paid in these private institutions. But in terms of recouping what the student or the learner might have paid, I think that just becomes a legal matter, which it becomes difficult for us as a department to actually assist in recouping. Of course, once everything has been verified, I am sure that the owners of those institutions would probably be obliged to pay back the monies. But as you know, DM, that they move. So once they've done something in Centurion, you'll probably find them somewhere in Soweto. So they just move around. So it becomes difficult even for the legal system to actually track them. But ours will just be to continue emphasizing that our people should consider the public institutions first more than anything else.
One of the prominent soccer bosses, was duped into accepting an honorary doctorate. And we've had many of this. I mean, I get inquiries from, people in business, people in the private sector, people in, community organizations, NGOs, and all of that who would say, look, I'm being approached with an offer for an honorary doctorate by the Universal Pentecostal Communist University of Azania, whatever the name is. And it means that, they're quite bold in their action. But I think what's important is that, government has to work with communities in order for us to get the information that we need about, suspected bogus colleges, and also, work with communities in ensuring that if we shut it down here, it doesn't crop up, anywhere else. But, as part of the guests, and I think Florence would introduce, but as part of the guests, we also have the leadership of the associations of private providers. Florence?
Thank you, DM. I think this might be a good time to speak to Dr. Shelley Lloyd, because Dr. Shelley Lloyd has quite an amount of experience working within the DHET space, the PSET space in general, having spent quite a lot of time as well at SAQA as a board member. And I'm curious, Dr. Lloyd, to find out about the way in which the private education provider sector goes into making sure that accreditation, number one, is done, but that it is known, first and foremost, to the young person or the older person. But in this case, we speak of a vulnerable young person that just left high school and is looking at opportunities to open up their future. And they end up with a college offering them something that isn't quite what they wanted. How do we, as we pull out the rogue elements, ensure that the good guys also don't get painted with the same brush? Shirley?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to the DM, to the hosts, and to the listeners. I've listened carefully to what the colleagues have said this afternoon, and it's all very correct. But what the Association of Private Providers of Education, Training and Development focus on are three big issues. Correctly, that the provider, whether it's a public or a private provider, they must be accredited by one of the three quality councils, being the Council on Higher Education, Quality Council for Trades and Occupations, or Umalusi. So accreditation to offer a formal qualification registered on the NQF. If that's the route that the young person or even older learner wants to go, that is essential. And we insist with our members that they actually display their accreditation certificate from one of the QCs. The second thing that I think is hugely important is that the qualification, if the learner is following a formal qualification, that is actually registered on our national qualifications framework. Should it be a qualification that they want to follow from a provider offering a foreign qualification, there's nothing wrong with that. But that must never be purported to be registered on our NQF. There are other ways and means of getting that recognition, which is then through the SAQA, South African Qualifications Authority process of getting the equivalent certificate through the foreign qualification evaluation. Another very big issue, and I think we sometimes forget this, is that many institutions, especially in the college space, are only offering qualifications which are registered on the QCTO sub-framework, that is the OQSF. And currently, providers who offer only QCTO qualifications, or should I say OQSF, that sub-framework qualifications, they do not have to be registered yet with a DHET. And that creates a lot of confusion, because you'll go to the DHET's register of private colleges or private higher ed institutions, and if they're offering qualifications on the CHE sub-framework or Umalusi sub-framework, they will be registered with the DHET on its register. But if they are offering only a qualification, an occupational qualification, they might not be on any register yet in DHET, because that still has to be legislated, that process. So we alert our members and our private providers to the fact that should a learner, a parent, whoever come and ask about their course, that they make it very clear to that learner, to that parent, to that payer of the fee of the course, that this is their situation, and that they in fact get endorsements, not the word, but that the QCTO then says, yes, they are accredited by us, but they're not yet registered at DHET, but the qualification is registered on the NQF. So those three terms, or accreditation, registration with DHET as a private institution, and registration of a qualification on the NQF, are very important terms. And we keep on drumming on this with our members. We want them to be open, upfront, honest. We also want them to be very clear when the qualification they're offering is not registered on the NQF, but it's a foreign one, and there's that process, as I said. And we also want them to be very clear when the course they are offering is a non-formal course. They must not sell anything to the public as a formal qualification. They must always be very upfront and honest. So I think that's what we are doing at the moment, and we are engaging regularly in different forums to bring this message to our members that honesty, integrity, ethical, value-driven teaching, learning, delivery, assessment is the only thing that we will stand with them by that. If they fail to do that, or they flout those rules, then they are obviously flouting the professional standard that we require. So that's about the best that I can offer at this stage. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Shirley. We've also got on the platform, everybody, Dr. Divya Singh, who is the Chief Academic Officer of Stadio. Now, that, in my understanding, is a private education provider. Welcome, Dr. Singh. Please take us through. Obviously, you've managed to get it right. How was that the case?
Thanks, Seema. And Deputy Minister, thank you very much for having me. And just allow me to say that I think this is probably the best time that we could be having this discussion. If you look at the number of students who have access to higher education from the class of 2021, the universities are not going to be able to accommodate them. So it is going to be the question of the private higher education space becoming a place of interest. The one thing that I do want to say is kudos to the department for the regulations that they have in place. The regulations are stringent. They're very strict. If you want to register as a private higher education provider, the regulations, I think, tick all the boxes to ensure credibility, to ensure integrity, and the rules are in place. And if you want to be a higher education provider in the private space and one who wants to be legitimate and recognized as such, then you will follow those principles and those rules. However, Seema, I think the big problem is not so much in what is there and what is expected, but what you find is, like in any social engagement, that there are people who are going to flout those rules. And it's that's where the problem comes in, when people don't comply with those rules. If, from my perspective, the department does what it can to ensure that people are registered, but the regulations, for example, require things like a registered provider has a registration number. In all of your advertising, that registration number must be visible. On your premises, your certificate must be visible together with the registration number. Now, the Deputy Minister said that they will often use the DHET logo, but the big gap is that you won't find a registration number linked to it. And that's perhaps a tip for people. Look out for that registration number. And when you engage with a private provider, make sure that they do give you that registration number. That's the one thing. But the other side of the coin is, and I did hear what the DG said about the engagement and the cascading of information. We did a study recently, and the sad thing that we found is that a large sector of the population, being grade 11 and 12 students, and even students currently in the university space, had no idea about the private space and what to do. They knew it was out there, but they didn't even know that they could, in fact, before they registered, that they should be looking for things like, what is the registration number? They didn't know that there was a database where they could check it. And it's things like that that I think the awareness and the knowledge, and I would almost want to hope that things like that start off with the guidance counselors in grades 10, 11, and 12. When you're helping students to find out about the options available to them, the universities are there, but there are private institutions that are very good and very credible, and talk to them about it, but also give them the information that will help them ensure that they do get to a credible space. So, in response to your question, what do you need to do? If you follow the guidelines, I think that you will be able to register an institution. And if you continue to follow the guidelines set both by DHET and the criteria set by the CHE, then we shouldn't have a problem. And look, I've got a law background. So the notion of consequence management and penalty is high in my frame of reference. And I believe that where we identify people who do not adhere to these regulations and who do not appear to the rules that are set out, there need to be serious repercussions for them. Otherwise, it's just going to continue to snowball.
Thanks so much, Divya. I think that's important, how to get it right. But in a nutshell, what is your advice, aside from looking for the registration number, that a student or a parent needs to bear in mind when looking at a private institution? Is there anything further you can tell us about that number? Is it made, does that number start with a particular digit, or perhaps is there a letter in it? Is there any sort of identifiable way for you to determine whether it is legit or not? And is it only just the number? Is there anything else that you can give us in terms of how do you identify whether something is bogus or not from the private side?
Well, look, there's not a silver bullet. That much I can say to you. But let's say if you were going onto the premises of it, you've got to see the DHET certificate. That DHET certificate has to be published visibly in the front, right up front there. So it's a whole certificate which also lists all the programs that have been accredited by CHE, registered by SAQA, and then placed on the certificate by the DHET. So if you're going in to register for a particular qualification, look at the certificate. The certificate comes from DHET, it's got the registration number, and it lists all of the qualifications that that particular institution can offer. On the marketing side, because so much is done online, so you don't always go into the premises where you can see this framed piece of paper. But on the website of the institution, you should also be able to see this. So the very first step that I would say to any parent or any student looking at a private institution is go onto their website and be careful which website you go onto. Don't go onto that one that simply says these are the qualifications we offer. Go into their homepage. Look at their homepage. Look at whether they are registered. Look at whether the business has been registered. Look at whether they have their DHET certificate. Look at whether there is a registration number linked to it. In addition, if I were that parent, what I would also do is I would go deeper and start looking at the institution. Because the one thing that we found in the private space is that both the CHE and the department are quite strict about the structures that need to be put in place. So when you start looking at the structure of the college, of the management structure, of the leadership structure, and if you see the same name doing 6 jobs in it, be a little bit wary about it. Look at who is the management team, look at who's the leadership team, look at what is being offered, how it is being offered, what kind of teaching and learning support is being provided in the space. So yes, it does require homework. It's the same, probably as amount of homework when we choose which is a good university to go to. We do that kind of homework. But here, what I'm saying is we're looking to see whether this is a legitimate college and whether there's the likelihood that they would have been accredited because they have the necessary infrastructure and resources available. Because those are the two issues that DHET does look for.
But is the database for registered private colleges and the qualifications that they are accredited to provide, is that database easily available to the public? I mean, can I get into the department's website, log in the name of the college, and then look at whether it has been registered or not, and then also look at the qualifications that has been registered? I know that some people have said, look, put a red list of these colleges. But the point is that, today it's calling itself a Christian university. Tomorrow it's a capitalist university. The other day it's a communist university. And so, it's difficult to keep track, but there should be a way in which we have a database where someone should be able to log in and look at if that college has been registered and if the qualifications they want to study has been registered.
Deputy Minister, from our side, we found that it is. On the DHET, you can go in and you can have a look at the private. You can identify, you can pick them up. The big issue is we speak from a perspective of having been in the space. And you're probably right. So we know where to look and we know how to look. Personally, what I would like to see is, on the department's web page, private higher education, it's not necessarily the stepchild. And this is what I keep saying. I think we could, if we can raise awareness around it, we can also raise the credibility of what is being offered. So if we can have the list where any parent, any member of the public can go in, identify, because the list is there, it's available to the DHET. The question is, how accessible has it been made to Joe Soap, who's a member of the public? So for that kind of thing, that would be important. Similarly, we say that they can go to SAQA and they can identify this is the college that's been registered, but are the programs or are the qualifications about which we're talking actually accredited and registered to that particular college there? And I must say, people might disagree with me, but my experience has been that is a difficult for the ordinary citizen That is not an easy exercise. And I think we could make it much easier with very little effort for this kind of information to be far more visible and more easily available to the members of the public around it. The one other thing that I do want to say is that in processing, what we sometimes have is that these colleges go out and they apply for registration simultaneously with a new program. And then you might have that the CHE accredits the program, which may be offered pending the registration, the formal registration of that institution. Many institutions, as soon as they get that accreditation, don't always, not many, sorry, wrong one. Institutions can, without getting that registration, then advertise. We have an accredited qualification. And again, members of the public think, oh, accredited qualification, we've heard that word before. They forget to check whether that institution has been registered. And so qualifications then start getting advertised and, as you've said, sometimes offered by institutions that are actually not registered. So I would like to suggest that when the CHE says to an institution that is not registered, you have a qualification accredited, but you can only offer it when it is when your institution is registered. The DHED, for example, the Director of Private Higher Education, is copied. That person should then immediately also send a letter to the persons of that institution saying, note, you may not offer until this college is registered. So there are various things that we could put in place to assist from a regulatory and compliance point of view as well, just to make it a little bit easier. It's not. I don't believe that it's difficult, and I don't believe that it's an expensive exercise to do it.
Yeah, do you want to speak, being part of this space? Do you have questions for our panel? I see we have the power race. We'll start with the power race and then take Tabo, and then we'll take it from there.
DM, can I just chip in there just before the powering? In
Yes,
terms
please.
in terms of the list that you've referred to, and Doc has, I think, she's quite right that maybe in terms of making this information publicly, there is a list and it is updated on a regular basis. I think the last update was beginning of October 2021, so it's probably 3 months old. So, which means that information is assisting to the public. So it is published for registration of private further education and training. Now, it consists of 2 sections. Section A, it shows, amongst others, it's the registration status of private colleges that are accredited with the accredited qualifications as well as the NQF levels. And then you've got Section B list, where you've got all the private colleges whose provisional or full registration has been cancelled due to various reasons, of course. So if you, for instance, Section A will give the name of the college, the site of delivery, the registration number, the province, and the qualification. But then on Section B, it will go further to indicate that this particular college is not, legit to offer these programs because of these various reasons. So I think, DM, perhaps maybe it will be an issue on how do we make this information to be accessible to the general public out there so that they don't have to struggle, because sometimes others even battle when you're talking about going to the website of the department, as others don't have access to such. Maybe it's something that we'll probably see how maybe in the media space this information can be published. I just wanted to have that input, DM. Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, DDG. All right. The power race.
Good afternoon to the panel and the listeners. I have two suggestions. I don't know how naive I am. I'm not even in the education space at all. But I would just like to say, with the issue of the bogus colleges, I've got two suggestions. They might be naive. Definitely the first one might be very logistics heavy. But I was thinking, other than the reputable universities that we have, the colleges that are popping up all over the show, is it not possible, because they've got a profit motive to them, would it not be possible that payment, it be made part of legislation that it is illegal to pay any amount, even a registration fee, to a college other than the big universities, obviously, to pay a fee? Everything must be paid through the Department of Education. And then the Department of Education would obviously speak to the banks so that these payments are not heavy in terms of fees when the department transfers the monies to the approved colleges. Because once the department receives the payment, then it would know whether the college that it is pushing that money to is in their system and is accredited, because it's the money that they want. That's why they're a bogus college. So that was my first suggestion. My second suggestion is a technology-based suggestion, which says, is it possible that it can also be legislated that all these colleges have some sort of a QR code? Because these youngsters have phones now. If you are attending a college, corner of Pretorius and Van der Walt, I don't know the new names of the streets now, I've forgotten them, and you're attending a college there that you are paying for, they must have something with a QR code, which when I scan must take me to the Department of Education's website, where it is that they are listed. And literally every college must have its own sub-branches. So even if that college has got its headquarters in Midrand, every site where people will attend must have its own QR code, so that when I come into that classroom, I scan and I say, okay, I've scanned it. It takes me to the Department of Education and it says this college and this branch of that college, or this campus of this college, is actually approved by the Department of Education to be there. So I don't know whether I'm being naive, any of those two suggestions, but I was just thinking of it from a systems point of view. I know it might be expensive, but I'm also looking at, if you consider that is a cost, that these poor parents and these students get duped and
the power race, your network is really letting us down, as you're making some really valid points. I don't know if anybody else can hear them.
Yeah, I think we should go on to Tabo.
Tabo Mkize, if you may take the microphone. Okay, it looks like Tabo also has some connectivity issues. DM, you may proceed to the next person you want to choose.
Well, I don't know, whoever else is on the list.
Meli Zondi.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity. I think what Diave has mentioned very profoundly when she mentioned about the institution or the stakeholders which are registered or offering the course or whatever, the training, and you find that they are not registered with the HEET. So it's very hard to find the QTCO or registered with NQF. My suggestion will be, can't we have them registered with the DHET if they are offering any training? So it's very easy to point out. And my second point is that why NSFAS is not allowed to the private colleges. And sometimes if you have any problems with NSFAS, it's not so easy to access them with the number which is offered on the website. As well, when you log in, you have a lot of problems. And personally, I have a challenge. 2019, I had a student which I was assisting yesterday, which I am working in the department of or in the colleges. So I was given a task by this student that he was studying 2019 and he was paid for by NSFAS, but then 2019 was not able to but he's doing a final year this year. 2019 he was paid by NSFAS all his studies, but 2019 is not paid for, and this year is doing a final year, so he cannot continue with his studies. And my other question is that there are a lot of colleges. The matriculants, they get excited that they have passed. They go to these institutions, and you find that the name of the institution is not the one it is registered with, and then they will say they are still changing the name on the database. And my question is, how long does it change, or how long does it take to change the name of the institution? And my other question is that how long an institution will have one institution as a headquarter, and how many registration numbers can they use? It's the same one which normally they'll have a head office in Pretoria and have 5 institutions in the rest of the country. Can they use the same registration number? And my other question, my last one, we are looking more on the private, yet we have problems with the public colleges where the NCVs are not recognized once the student they are done. They are not recognized in the public institutions. What can we do on that one? Thank you.
Ooh, that's a mouthful. DM, I'm going to try and ask perhaps Fame that we start off immediately with the NCV not being recognized one. DDG Mazini can take care of that. The one on private training providers, I don't know if that's something we should send back to Dr. Naidu, because it sounds like something the QCTO would be able to assist us with. And then if we can have, there was another one, if we can have NSFAS respond to the
No. Thanks, Flo. I think perhaps if we were talking about 5 or 6 years ago, that would have been the case. I think we've made some strides, particularly within the PSET system, in terms of the implementation of the articulation policy, as stated on the white paper for post-school education. Yes, indeed, not all universities will be in a position to admit, but there is quite a number of universities that are now recognizing NCV as a form of qualification for furthering your studies at universities. And I think, DM, the issue of articulation has been one of the most sensitive ones, because the issue of articulation, even between the universities themselves, is still a problem. Where I study at one university and I want to move to another university, I find that they don't recognize maybe that qualification. I have to start on my first year and so forth. So it's a matter which is that we are working on within the PSET system. But I must say there has been quite a lot, and I'm saying this again, DM, that even within the artisanal field, you recall that in the past, the students that had NCV, they were not admitted to do the apprenticeship training. But lately, as we are phasing out the N1s to N3s, now we are beginning to see that the employers are now recognizing NCV as well as a form of, apprenticeship form of training. So I think we've made some strides in that regard, but there will be those selected, cases of which if one becomes aware, we just need to know so that from our side, we can also see how we can intervene and assist that particular student. Thank you, Flo.
Thank you, DDG. Dr. Naidu, if I can just ask for your response to the issue on private training providers.
Thank you very much, Florence. And I just want to clear the air. I'm not a doctor as yet.
Apologies. Yes.
If you're conferring an honorary one on me,
I'm blessing you with the possibility. I believe they go, I receive.
I don't want to be found the other side of the DM's comments about the honorary doctors. But I will take the question posed around, the difficulties around finding the list of accredited STPs on the QCTO. Admittedly, that was a problem, but to the best of my knowledge, and I will check on the website immediately after this, that we have revised the website. It is very user friendly. When they click on the homepage, it will just direct you immediately to whether you're looking for qualifications. You can go there and then find the qualifications, or if you're looking for providers, you would click on the providers and it should show up. And that list was updated as recently as last week. So nevertheless, I would follow up if there is a challenge regarding that. And I just want to emphasize the point raised by the DDG. We spoke about the DHET, we spoke about the QCTO website, but the DDG alluded to the CETA website, and that may also be, one of the issues, because there is a transition arrangement between the CETAs and the QCTO at the moment, to move all of these processes to one single point, which will be the QCTO. So I think the CETAs also play a very important role. Certainly, I think the issue as raised by Dr. Lloyd as well, in terms of the registration of skills development providers, should be prioritized, because that is about one of the only legal mechanisms by which to shut down. There is a difference between registration and accreditation, but I won't go into that elaboration now. And then just to indicate that in terms of the QCTO, the head office is not the only place that's accredited. Every site at which the learning and the training is offered has to be accredited, because in the skills development space, a lot of the training depends on your facilities, your workshops, equipment, etc. So if you're offering at multiple sites, then each site is granted its own accreditation, so that we can ensure that learners get value for their money in terms of that. I also like the issue raised by Power Ace around the QR codes. Certainly, QCTO has started using the QR codes on our certification of learners. And certainly, I would look into the issue of the QR codes on the registration certificates of private providers or skills development providers with a matter of urgency. Thank you, Lorraine. Florence, sorry.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mike. I'm speaking like on the behalf of training providers.
Mike.
Most students,
Mike,
firstly, they are not aware of most of the SETAs. So they kind of go to the Department of Higher Education's website, and then they see maybe that training provider is not there, while the college itself is accredited. So this also, at some point, it causes confusion between students. Between now, the college is claiming that it is accredited with A, B, C, D, but they don't know. Some students, they don't even know QCTO. Some, they don't even know EW QCTO. And some students don't even know the difference between accreditation and registration with the Department of Higher Education, which there's a big difference, you see. So that's also something that if there was one database that can list all training providers, whether they are accredited or registered with the Department of Higher Education, to be listed on one database which can be provided to the students, and also just an awareness of students knowing the difference between registration with the Department of Higher Education as well as accreditation. And also there's also some basic things like what is the difference between a credit-bearing course and a non-credit bearing course, and how can a student actually recognize that, you see? Because I run a college, but when you find that I offer skills programs, and when a student searches the company name, it's okay, let me search the company name, and then they don't find the company on the Department of Higher Education. At the end, they think you are also at a Bogus College. So it's also a matter of one database, as well as an awareness of all the CTAs, QC2, how they work, so that students are also aware about that.
I don't know. I see Sibulele is also trying to have something to say. I've given you the mic, Sibulele. No? Okay. Before I go, and I'd like to ask, please, if we've given you the microphone to speak, when you have had a chance to speak, if you can just drop the mic so that you open up spaces for other people. Sibulele, please go ahead.
Thanks, Ma'am Florence. Good evening to everyone. I think mine is quite, it's short and sweet. I think when it comes to bogus colleges, for instance, when I came into university a couple of years ago, I didn't know much about bogus colleges and those that are registered with the Department of Higher Education. So it was a bit blurry when I came in to the space, but as time went by, I started knowing a bit when I joined up, when I ended up in student activism. In as far as, I'm not sure whether I'm audible or not. Hello?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
You're audible?
Okay, let me continue. So I don't know whether the Department of Higher Education is doing enough to ensure that people that are in high school are actually knowledgeable when it comes to bogus colleges. I'm not sure whether they're running enough programs to create awareness regarding bogus colleges. So mine is it's a quick question to the Deputy Minister, if they could just create an awareness centered around bogus colleges, go into institutions like high schools to create awareness to these young people so that young people are aware of such things. Thank you very much.
Okay, look, I mean, I fully agree with you, and I mean, it's something that we've been doing for quite some time. I mean, the department and ministry has started aggressively exposing bogus colleges since 2011. We've invested some resources in building, you know, a profile and capacity so that you know, most people, we can reach out to most people, and so that they can have access to this information. And of course we continue with that, and that's why when people said, but why are you doing this on Twitter? And you know, this is not the only platform where we're doing this. We've been working together with the Department of Basic Education to inform especially grade 12 learners. We've gone to some of these colleges, we've gone into communities, you know, to build awareness, and we continue to do that. And as I said in the introduction, you know, we've seen a drastic decline in you know, bogus colleges, but it doesn't mean that they've gone away. You know, and they change names, they change form, they mutate, they find ways within which they can be able to deceive not only government officials, but also you know, unsuspecting parents and children. And I think we also depend more on you know, word of mouth. You've been here, you know what's happening, you know what is it that needs to be done, you know, and therefore help us you know, spread the word. And I think that that's the basis within which we want to continue with this you know, public engagements around you know, bogus colleges. I don't know if any of our panelists want to respond to any of the questions, and then we will wrap up by having the COO of the National Student Financial Aid Scheme just to give us you know, a public service announcement. Anybody from the panel?
Thank you, DM. If I could very quickly just come in here,
Yes,
it's Shirley Lloyd. Yes, I fully support what has been said, and I like that issue that was raised by Power, that of the QR code. I think that's a very good idea. But I've just had a quick look at, for example, the QCTO's website, etc. So if you do not, as I mentioned earlier, some very good colleges and institutions, private ones and skills development providers, are not going to be found on any DHET register for registered providers, because these providers only offer qualifications registered on the occupational qualifications sub-framework. So if you go into this QCTO's website, you will find various databases, skills development providers for foundational learner competence, or for the trades or whatever. And so double check the learner, the parents, the payer, whoever is involved in looking for a place to go. When we recognize that the public spaces in public colleges and public universities might already be full, and you want to go and study somewhere. So have a look at that. That is, Vijay Naidu, the CEO of QCTO, was saying they've been working and updating. These seem to be very thorough databases where you can also double check, are these providers accredited? So that's a safety mechanism. And maybe before NSFAS comes on, just to throw something into the pot around that. There are many learners who would love to be able to be accommodated in a public college or a public higher ed institution, but those are already full. And those learners from poor backgrounds have come from households with a very small annual income. And possibly it's time to have a look at a different means test, a means test of affordability, because not everybody who has to eventually go to a private institution has the money to do so, but they're desperate to study, and so they take bank loans, etc. So maybe just a thought there, DM, of something that could be thought about later on. Thank you.
Thank you, DM. I don't know if you want us to immediately move to NSFAS. I would have wanted to have a quick word in closing from DDG Manzini, just to remind young people that the TVET option is an option if they have passed and want to be proceeding after their grade 12, and then we'll give the opportunity to NSFAS.
No, thanks for and thanks DM for this opportunity once more. Indeed, I know that most young people, when they get their results, they become so desperate that they will not have the adequate points to be admitted in university programs. There are options within the post-school education. As I've said, there are opportunities within the TVETs, and there are also opportunities within the CET college. And also further to that, you also have the option of pursuing maybe the skills programs through the learnerships and apprenticeship route. But within the TVETs, I think the matriculants or those that will still want to go and try, I think they can still try. Maybe because NSFAS is here, they can tell us if that window is still open. But I hear that it might be closing tomorrow. But there are opportunities within the TVETs in various programs. What is good about TVETs is that they are strategically located and accessible in the nearest township, or be it a rural setting. So it's easy to access them, as opposed to universities that you'll probably find in the major cities that you've got to travel to go there. But we also want to encourage our young people that even within the TVETs, we do have online applications which they can do on time. If they miss this time around, that they cannot be admitted. We've got multi-intakes during the year. If you cannot be admitted now on this first registration of the year, we have trimester courses that are available. We also have semester courses that are available. So we can be able to have multi-intakes during the year. So if you do miss this one, make sure that the next one you are able to go and register at the TVET College. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Flo. And once more, congratulations to the matriculants, and we're really looking forward to seeing in our institutions. Thank you.
Thank you, TDG. Ntuseng, you are the Chief Operations Officer at the National Student Financial Aid Scheme. I'm saying it in full because it's the one acronym that gets all sorts of versions every day. I recently had NFCs as one of the misacronymization, if that's a word, of NSFAS, NSFAS. So if I may just ask you, as DM said you should do, to give us the public service announcement regarding applications. Ms. Mphathele?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Florence. Greetings to DM and greetings to all the speakers and the participants that are on the space. I think once again, I want to also join everyone that is congratulating the class of 2021. I think they've really done extremely well under the very difficult circumstances. And we can't wait to process their applications. As it stands, we have really received an overwhelming response from all corners in terms of our young people applying for the NSFAS bursaries to get into the 2022 academic program. In fact, one of the speakers was asking the question, why is NSFAS not funding public colleges? And I must mention that as an entity, we get a mandate from the Act. And in terms of our legislation, at this point in time, we are only empowered to fund and administer bursaries for students that are studying at public higher education institutions. And this speaks to the 26 universities and the 50 TVET colleges that we have as a country. So as it stands, we are sitting well close to 900,000 hopefuls that are looking towards NSFAS funding them into 2022. So this is quite a huge demand, and you can see that even though the application cycle kind of opened later in the year, around the 2nd of November, that indeed young people have heeded the call. Young people want to study. And I think this space has really provided an insight into what are some of those things that they need to look out for as they begin to submit their applications to be accepted at institutions of higher learning. Having said that, we have really now almost approved funding for close to 250,000 SASA beneficiaries. So most of those applicants that have come through and have already received their immediate funding response are those students that we immediately pre-approved to also be SASA beneficiaries. So that's quite a significant number of applicants that have come through. And I must mention that we're busy finalizing our funding lists for the next week so that colleges and universities also can start with their processes. The big issue that we are dealing with right now, as one of the speakers was saying, was students that had been funded by NSFAS before, whether at colleges and or at universities, and for one reason or another, there has been a missed payment in terms of the academic program. There's been a big reconciliation exercise that NSFAS has undertaken in the last year and a half. And I'm really happy to mention here that we are almost 98%. And therefore, we are hoping that as the year starts, at least that picture will be available to the institutions to know who are the students that should be cleared, who are the students, therefore, that NSFAS will take responsibility for. And as it stands, today is the last day of applications. The application cycle initially was the 2nd of November to the 7th of January 2022. And because of the expressed need of our students, there was a need to extend the cycle to the 21st of January, which is today. And indeed, we have seen quite significant progress in some of the provinces. Even I have to mention the Northern Cape. It was sitting poorly, just under 7,000. But when we are looking at the numbers today, it's looking much better. So I must also thank you, DM, and your team in terms of your outreach activities to all those areas which were identified as areas of concern by NSFAS, and that we really need to increase our uptake of the applications in those areas. The manual application campaign has actually yielded results, and we are seeing at least a good representation of application across all the provinces. So indeed, today is the last day of applications. Please do submit and make sure that all the students then are able to submit their applications and are able to access the NSFAS bursaries. So because this is the peak time, most of the students would prefer to reach the contact center. Please do explore all the other social network platforms that are available for NSFAS so that you can be able to raise your query and in time be responded to. Thank you very much, Florence. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ntuseng. DM, back to you.
Thank you, Ntuseng,
Sorry.
for that. And I want to also thank all the panelists who joined us today, and all of you part of this space, our first space for the year 2022. So we've got it. And just some to reiterate some important numbers. We will be putting up some of these numbers up on our Twitter pages, but also if you could check our department's website. So if you are not certain about a college and you think that or you suspect that it may not be registered with our department, the toll-free number is 0800 872 222, or you can check the website www.dhet.gov.za/resources/registers. But also want to remind you, as Ntuseng did, get someone, help someone to apply for their NSFAS. Today is the closing date. We don't want you to be calling us tomorrow, I missed the date, or this or that. And I think she's given us all the details. And for those of you who have not managed to register for university or TVET college, and I'm not sure where you're going to be studying from now on, maybe because these things can be very confusing at times, or you probably didn't know, you were not certain whether you want to study further, you wanted to take a gap year, but now you're thinking, hey, I need to go to varsity or to a TVET college. We've got the Central Application Clearinghouse, which will be operational from Monday, 24th of January to the end of March. And what this Central Application Clearinghouse does is that it refers learners or individuals to career development services, and where possible, it also provides an opportunity to be considered for spaces that are available in universities and TVET colleges. I'm sure some of you have seen the University of Mpumalanga putting up an advert saying they still have spaces in this particular areas of fields of study. So the Central Application Clearinghouse helps students who register their details there with them, to place them to different universities, TVET colleges where there are still spaces and their programs of studies are still available. So this service will be open until the 31st of March. And again, we will be posting all of this information on our social media and other forms of media that we have. But you can check the Catch Central Application Clearinghouse website, which is cach.ac.za, and the number is 0860 690 722. Thank you very much. Have a good weekend and enjoy your Friday. And welcome to the class of 2021 who will be joining us in our universities and TVET colleges in 2022. Bye.
Thank you very much, DM. Closing words, Sima. What are we doing next week? Do we know? Or DM will tell us that during the weekend. We will share with everyone. Last words, Sima. Okay, Sima doesn't want to give the last words. DM has given the last words, so we are out. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. And if you have any more questions regarding bogus colleges, feel free to tag the department on Twitter and get the answers, or call the number as DM has indicated, 0800 872 222. Thank you very much for joining this space. Goodbye.